Hi, Phil Aston here from Now Spinning Magazine with another video looking at another Deep Purple album. And this time I've chosen Slaves and Masters. I was recently on the Sea of Tranquility show where we look back at the year 1990, and my choice was Deep Purple's Slaves and Masters album. So I thought it would be an opportunity for me to expand on what I kind of covered on that and go more into the story of this album and what it means to me now. Well, Deep Purple reformed in 1984. It was big news. I remember I was playing in Rogue Mail at the time. We were backstage in the dressing room at Dingwalls in London. And somebody came in and said, they've done it. I was like, who's done what? They've reformed. They're getting back together. And someone came in with a copy of Sounds, and there it was. Deep Purple were going to reform in the classic Mark II lineup. It was massive news. Gillan, Whitesnake, and Rainbow were massive. Everybody who'd been involved with Deep Purple, wherever they were, was having a huge career on their own. There aren't many bands outside of bands like Yes, where every member had a record deal to do solo albums or been involved with other bands or were successful at that level. You know, everybody. And it was the Mark II lineup. And again, remember, a lot of people had grown up with rock music then would have been slightly too young to see the Mark II lineup. I'm one of them. I saw Mark III in 74, and I'd seen Rainbow and Whitesnake and Gillan as many times as I could, and now Deep Purple reforming. So the idea was, people like Simon Robinson and the fan club Darker Than Blue, was that if they were getting together for a while, it wasn't going to be forever. Rainbow were on ice. Everyone else's bands and stuff was on hold. John Lord was moving out of Whitesnake, but he might go back. It was seen as like a project, but it would be Mark II or nothing. So when later on, after Nobody's Perfect came out, which was a double live album that kind of mimicked or tried to become Made in Japan, which was a huge error, Inhassibly Light to kind of faltered as they'd tried to follow what was going on around them. And what was going on around them, Purple were outside of that, so we had like all the hair metal stuff and thrash coming out. Deep Purple were Deep Purple. But when news came out that Gillan, rumours had it, had been fired from Deep Purple, the outrage from the fan club and everyone else and all the kind of Deep Purple fans even, was that they should stop. The whole idea with the reunion, it was just called the reunion all the time since the reunion, was that they shouldn't carry on now. They'd broken it. There was no intention, surely, that if any one of the Mark II members left, then they'd all stop. But they didn't. Not only were they going to carry on, but they'd chosen Joe Lynn Turner as a replacement for Ian Gillan. Now, I love Joe Lynn Turner. And of course, I love Rainbow. And I didn't really get that upset when Dio left because it was a different Rainbow and Richie Blackmore was chasing, success, chart success. He was trying to make it all pay for itself. And I'm Bent Out of Shape is one of my favourite Rainbow albums. Of course, so is Rising, but it is. So to me, it was like, gosh, didn't expect that. And of course, all the Deep Rainbows sayings were kind of bubbling up to the surface, weren't they? And I was intrigued to think what they might do, to be honest, but obviously a lot of people were just thinking it's over, they shouldn't be carrying on, etc. And I'd read interviews in Kerrang where John Lord had said, look, Deep Purple is Richie Blackmore's band. Richie Blackmore is our secret weapon. He what he says goes, and, he's Purple. We weren't that long into the future where each member of Deep Purple would realise that Richie Blackmore wasn't the band and they could actually survive without him. But anyway, but back then, that is exactly how it was. And they just got a brand new record deal with RCA, and RCA were probably thinking this is going to be absolutely amazing. The first single that pops out from this album is King of Dreams, which we're in the CD era now. I'll explain how I've got vinyl ones in a moment. And I bought that as a CD single, which I don't have because I can't because I can't find it. And it had a slightly different mix, which is on one of the other CDs. Bear with. And it was good, and I did really like it. But when the album came out, and the fact they opened with it, I thought, because one of the things about Deep Purple I've always felt is that side one, track one of any album is stunning. In fact, I still believe that there should be a compilation, Deep Purple album. Surely, Phil, are you saying there's room for more Deep Purple compilations? Yeah, one more. And it should be called Track One, Side One. Because everything of every album is the killer track, side one, track one. Here, maybe it was the first time where it's good, and it does actually end up on some compilations, but was it the best track to open with? I would suggest that the best track to open this album with would have been The Cut Runs Deep. And if it had opened with The Cut Runs Deep, I think it might have had a totally different feel to it, to way some people perceived it. The Cut Runs Deep is a killer riff. It's not an overcomplicated riff, but it's menacing. It's heavy. The way it comes in and those kind of keyboard stabs from John Lord. Great vocal delivery by Joe Lynn Turner. The whole band sounds great. Great guitar solo. Richie, by this stage, you got that kind of... The way he ended his lead runs was almost like not untidy, but kind of just as if he deliberately wanted you to feel that hear the fingers go down the strings. It was kind of something it developed, and I loved it. This kind of whole snake charmer riff and kind of scales he was using, this was everywhere on this album. I also really liked the next one, Fire in the Basement, which obviously lent heavily on the track Lazy to me. And as someone said recently as well, it also sounds like a track off Bent Out of Shape, Drinking with the Devil. It got that kind of feel to it. And great guitar playing, great keyboards, etc. There's a bit at the very end, which I know some people from the die-hard kind of Purple camp had felt that when Joe Lynn Turner goes, "This isn't going to match," that kind of Americanism at the end, some people had trouble with. And I think the other thing is that Joe Lynn Turner was a more flamboyant lead vocalist in the way he dressed and the way he performed and his old mannerisms. And in the UK, being the kind of reserved people that we are, we didn't really have flamboyant lead vocalists in any band, did we? It was cheesecloth shirts and undone to the waist and stuff. And Robert Plant was fairly flamboyant, perhaps, but not in an American type David Lee Roth type way. Not so when Joe Lynn Turner was like David Lee Roth, but he had that kind of feel. To me, I just thought he was fab. Well, I think there's on the Straight Between the Eyes DVD or VHS as it was, there's a few things there when he comes across a little bit kind of perhaps leaning that direction. But I thought with this, I wanted to give him a full chance. Now, for a lot of people, what happens after that, because I bought the CD, because the track listing on the vinyl album is different. So I don't know whether that would have affected me. And do you know what? I only noticed this about a week ago, having lived with the album since 1990. But I've always been having the CD. I've got two versions on vinyl, which I will explain. But on the album, the next one we're in is Truth Hurts, which doesn't happen until it's the first opening track on side 2 of the vinyl. And I wonder whether that would have made you feel different. But Truth Hurts, which has got a kind of Sail Away by Deep Purple Mark III, So Cold by Rainbow, Street of Dreams by Rainbow feel to it. Definitely Foreigner, ABBA-esque, perhaps. It's a great track. I absolutely love it, but it must have been sounding a bit of a shock for people who were expecting Deep Purple. But what do you expect from Deep Purple? Because if you actually look back through the catalogue, to me, Deep Purple was a band that had already shown they did different things. Their first 3 albums are all different from each other. Concerto for Group and Orchestra, very different. In rock, it's different from Fireball to Machine Head to Who Do We Think We Are, Burn and Stormbringer is very different, isn't it? Come Taste the Band is very different. Has Blue Line is very different. Perfect Strangers, all the live stuff, etc. So to me, you could say this was like bent out of shape with Hammond organ on it, because it was a kind of a natural progression for Ritchie to take where Rainbow might have gone, hence the Rainbow kind of observations. But to me, it felt closer to Mark III than it did to Mark II. And this album, to me, sits quite neatly next to Burn and Stormbringer. In that, probably more so than Come Taste the Band, because Ritchie's still involved. But Truth Hurts, Breakfast in Bed, Love Conquers All of these songs have a feel to them in this section as we move out of Fire in the Basement and, the Cup Runs Deep. There's a feel to these, and I think it's great. Now, shall we? Yes, Love Conquers All, because this was the ballad, which again is very non-Purple if you want it, but so was You Keep On Moving from Come Taste the Band or Soldier of Fortune. So, and Joe Lynn Turner sings these songs absolutely beautifully. I always felt that the really hard, heavy stuff, Joe Lynn Turner's voice, I think he had to push a lot on that, and it sounded more natural doing this kind of foreigner-esque AOR feel. It just felt fantastic. Love Conquers All. Can you imagine if Aerosmith had done that track? Or can you imagine if Kiss had done that track and Paul Stanley was singing it? Imagine, I'm just saying Forever by Kiss, stuff like that. That might, I'm deliberately picking on names that will make some of you think, what? But think about it. That kind of voice, it would have been epic, but because it was Deep Purple, and although it was released as a single, it was like, wasn't going to work, was it? And then we have Fortune Teller, which isn't one of my favourite tracks off the album. And Too Much Is Not Enough, which was a track that was meant for a Joe Lynn Turner solo album and didn't appear at the time. It did later on. It was also covered by The Law with Paul Rodgers, but again, it didn't appear on the album by The Law. So a lot of people have tried to use it. Here, with all the backing vocals, and Deep Purple didn't do backing vocals. I know you've got Coverdale and Hughes, but backing vocals. So it does sound a bit kind of odd. And then the last track was Wicked Ways, which is a great way to end the album. Very much the cut runs deep, heavy riff, really gallops along, great track. It slows down at some point and you think Richie's going to really push out and stretch out here, and he sort of does, but he doesn't really stretch out as much as you think he might. And so there was a feeling to me that Blackmore was playing safer. Cynics might have said he was a bit bored with rock music and he was already got one eye on where else he wanted to go. But he wanted to do this. This is the album he wanted to make. Anyway, on a personal basis, in my life at this time, I had met the woman who was going to be my wife, Sue, who's on the wall behind me. And Sue is a classically trained violinist who was really into classical music and punk, ironically. So she was listening to Sham 69 and Elgar violin concertos and didn't really know much about rock music as it was. And Sue wanted to take me to go and see the Pet Shop Boys. And I said, okay, I'll go and see the Pet Shop Boys if you come and see Deep Purple with me. Now, taking anyone to see Deep Purple or Rainbow, basically the common thread there is Ritchie Blackmore was a bit of a risk, because if Ritchie was in a bad mood, he might have his back to the audience, truncate off the tracks and not do an encore. Bit of a risk. I'd always been lucky. So I thought, give it a go. It's a new lineup. He might be in a good mood. So, and he was. And the band opened with Burn. My favourite Deep Purple album and track is Burn, and they opened with it. And you thought, this is it. Blackmore's got the freedom now to really go into his back catalogue, Purple's back catalogue, and Rainbow, because he covered a bit, Difficult to Cure and stuff from Globally Rock and Roll. But now he could do Mark II stuff and Mark III stuff, and they opened with Burn, and it was fantastic. He wasn't that animated. He wasn't in a bad mood. I don't think they played well. He was a support act, and the support act was Vixen. They played well. This was Sue's first ever rock concert. And I think that even people leaving, there was a mixed feel to it, but I was happy. I thought it was the right mixture of songs. Joe Lynn Turner singing some of the stuff didn't work as perhaps that well, but they did a lot of songs from this album, which I think really helped. And I thought it'd be a great beginning, but of course, I don't think RCA or even Richie had realised, because it was a reunion, how much people loved Ian Gillan. And the album, considering the last studio album got to number 10 in the UK album charts, this one got to number 45, and in America it was worse. I think it's just about scraped in at number 87, and half the gigs were cancelled. But obviously RCA weren't very happy with the investment. And of course, another story is that the Battle Rage On will be next, even though some of the songs are written for Joe Lynn Turner, and Ian Gillan will be back as Mark II. Of course, and Rishi then really was not always in a good mood at all. But I mentioned the fact that I took Sue to see this gig because this was her first exposure really to Deep Purple. And when I was playing this album last week, because I hadn't played it for a while, not only was I really enjoying it, but Sue came in from the kitchen. She went, "Oh, I wish they'd done more albums with Joe Lynn Turner. He's by far the best vocalist that the band had." And it's my theory again of the Doorway album, the album or the event that gets you into a band and how it affects you. Because I thought, really? With all the catalogue of Ian Gillan albums and Coverdale and whatever, Joe Lynn Turner only made one album. And she went, yeah, but they should have done more. And you can see why, because she heard the album, saw the band on this tour, loves these songs. These songs are Joe Lynn Turner's songs. This album is Joe Lynn Turner's lineup. And although afterwards, many people in the other members of the Deep Purple go, oh, it wasn't really a Deep Purple album, we never really thought it was Deep Purple. They did at that time. Yeah, but there's all the round robin interviews. Blackmore didn't say anything. Although, and I think Blackmore now says it's one of his favourite Deep Purple albums. I just felt that he played much with more fire with on the Battle Ages On tour, and especially with the first return of Rainbow. And in fact, sometimes even with Blackmore Night, I felt like whether he was starting to wonder where he was really heading. But as a body of songs, I think there's much to enjoy here. And I think one of the other interesting things is the fact that when I did the video about the 10 albums that always seem to be on the underrated lists, and I put Stormbringer, and so many people said, I never thought Stormbringer like that. Obviously, everyone liked Stormbringer. They didn't, because Stormbringer was so alien to what Burn was or Machine Head. But of course, now everyone loves Stormbringer like I do. Watch the separate video on Stormbringer. And it seems to be that this is the album that lots of people will say, well, I'm not sure Purple should have done that. I disagree. And also a lot of Kerrang had actually said Deep Purple are ready for the 90s. They gave it a really good review. A lot of the press liked this and thought it was a new beginning for Deep Purple. This vinyl version, which is the original one, is heavily battered, and I rescued it from an antique shop. I do think the cover is not is not fantastic, and it does look like something that AI would design within seconds now. And yet again, Deep Purple still trying to work out what really was their branding for their name. This one here is a repressing on Music for Vinyl. So it comes with a separate lyric sheet. But that's my favourite vinyl version. I'm waving around my first original CD I bought of it. I've also got the program from when me and Sue went to see them. And what's interesting about programs from this period is how blurred a lot of the photography was. You wouldn't get away with that now. The photographs were kind of functional, and I think whether John Lord actually wanted to have his photograph taken, but that was obviously stock photograph from a different period. Because when we saw him, his hair was grey, I think. But again, programs didn't really give you a lot. The tour, it was the 14th of March, 12th of March 1990. We went to see them 2 days before my birthday. And other stuff, there was a 12-inch single. And on the back of the 12-inch single was Truth Hurts and also Slow Down Sister. Now, Slow Down Sister was one of the outtakes from the album. And it's worth mentioning because it was 6 minutes and the riff is very much like Stormbringer. It's very close to the Stormbringer riff. And although they didn't put it on the album, I think if they had put it on the album, it would have been another more Purple-esque rock song on the album. I would have put Slow Down Sister on and taken off Fortune Teller. I think that would have made a big difference. And this came with a giant poster of the band. Good. Do you want to see that? We'll try. Let's have a look. Sorry, not the best way to do it. No, can't really do it, but it's basically on the other side is just a picture of a girl. And bear with me. And that was it. We'll just put that on the floor. And what else? And the last one, because on the CD that came out recently, which was an H&E, Slow Down Sisters on it, but there was one more track, which was Fire, Ice and Dynamite, which is in a soundtrack from a film featuring Roger Moore. And it's also in a video, a DVD that came out with lots of different Deep Purple tracks on. I believe that John Lord isn't on that, but it's a great track. It's another song that if it had been on the album, it would have given it more rock credentials. It is very American. It's very foreigner-esque, but more a harder track. But Fire, Ice and Dynamite. If you're on YouTube watching this anyway, just pop out with another tab and put that in Deep Purple, Fire, Ice and Dynamite, and tell me what you think. So there were some great moments. So what is the only thing missing from this period? There's no live album, is there? There isn't one. And one was recorded. As far as I know, there was a live recording made by the BBC. They were recorded in concert for the BBC. But because Joe Lynn Turner was no longer in the band and Ian Gillan was back, the powers that be thought, what's the point? And it was never put out. And then, of course, with all the faffing around that's gone on with lawyers and solicitors running off with pockets of royalties and stuff, and so many things have kind of closed down in the world of Deep Purple reissues. That's why that series we had over the life stuff not that long ago never finished, and the deluxe edition of Made in Europe hasn't arrived. All of these things, and now all the band kind of like deciding what's in it for them. A live document from this period of the band is what we want. I would love to hear that version of Burn. I know there's bootleggy things out there, but I'm not a great fan of bootlegs. But there must be some live gigs from this lineup. And I think that's the only thing missing from the Deep Purple live catalogue is a Slaves and Masters tour gig. That'd be great. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on it. I'm going to do a different ranking video on Deep Purple soon, look at the live albums and the overall studio albums from my perspective. So where will this be? You'll have to wait and see. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all of your support. Please subscribe. I know that thousands of you have yet to do that. It really does help if you can. And if you become a patron or a YouTube member, you get some good perks now. You get to join the Facebook private community full of like-minded music fans. It's a really safe, great place to hang out. There's also a WhatsApp group, again, just for patrons and YouTube members. There's like new release news, there's deals and offers and all sorts of things in there. And also we have a twice monthly meetup at our own virtual pub called the Now Spinning Arms. And you can come to that as well. There's merch you can buy to support Now Spinning magazine. And remember, music is the healer and the doctor. So please take care, all of you. Thank you for being here with me on this journey. Take care, and I'll talk to you all very, very soon.